Has anything surprised you about conversations in Canada from visiting different parts of the country?
Yeah. So I thought people would say things like, oh, we already have a really robust kind of like conversational scene, right? We have these national conversations online. There are all these words flying all over the place. There's a lot of language. And so this might be a little bit like unnecessary or what. But in fact, what I found was this group of people that you don't really see online much, right? Who are saying, yeah, I feel that too. And the it here is this kind of fear at getting things wrong in the moment and then being canceled, right? Or being, castigated for just making a good effort but having the wrong term, or just being out of step with her moment. And that fear has already done its work, which is to shut them down and silence them, which means that they never get beyond their knowledge of certain subjects, right? And they can never really, in good faith, have their theories kinds of tested and worked out. So we have this kind of like freezing of culture that happens by people, this freezing of people who really want to keep advancing, right? But the climate is not such that allows kind of like free, doesn't really allow folks to make mistakes anymore. So those people sort of came forward.
Yeah. Where do you think that fear is coming from for those people? Is it media? Is it online? Is it from their communities?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is sort of like driven online or acted out online, right? But yeah, we've seen, in the 2000s how for saying the wrong thing, you can lose your job, right? And the consequences are real. That's not to say. And we see a kind of like exhausted class too, with like, you should know this by now, right? Like you should understand racism and you should understand some gender theory, and you should understand all of these things. And unfortunately, some good people were busy like raising their kids and all that, like in the interim, and they were just caught up doing other things. Not all of us like have the time to sort of be conversant with the latest sort of fashions of our language. And language does have fashion, the way that like you're styled right now. There are terms that come in and lose meaning and sort of, and all of that. So it comes from, both like this online pressure, this kind of exhaustion, this kind of amped up frustration with people who don't get it yet. And so you'd be ashamed to admit and say, no, I actually don't know anything about that, right? Or I'm not really interested in that. You should be. And there are already all these pressures on us to be enlightened and to, to meditate and to practice mindfulness and to be sort of perfect externally and internally already. And so to admit anything less is a kind of failure.
I want to ask you about polarization. And you write in the book, quote, ideologies dominate our ability to dissent from institutions because they simply don't value anything but total adherence. Are we becoming too dogmatic as a society?
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter what the ideology is, right? The point is that you will sort of join a team and stay in that team. And from your loyalty and your position in those teams, you can be managed, right? You can be managed. So the primary function of like any kind of like ideology or political affiliation or whatever is that kind of loyalty, right? Like it stifles dissent because it says, we've got you here and all that matters is just be loyal to whatever direction this is going in, right? For me, that's dangerous. And I would prefer to see a culture made up of a series of missteps. And maybe I'm making a misstep right now in like one aspect of my life. But in a year, I will have the record of my progress, right? I will say I was here for a period of time and I moved from here to there. And here are the interventions that led me there. So blind loyalty doesn't like that, right? To say like, oh, I'm not bought today. I might change my mind if more evidence comes my way.
Right.
Really rigid ideologies want you to refuse evidence and stay fixed.